finally, our last topic. It's what's happening tonight. The NHL season is finally here. It's starting tonight, and it's very interesting because they finished up right around the same time the NBA did. It took them a little bit longer to get their next season going, but you wonder how strategic it was to start right around this time because you are in the midst of the NFL playoffs, but after this upcoming weekend, you're just going to have the two conference championship games on Sunday. Then you have the week off. Then you have the Super Bowl. And then the NFL's done. You just had the NCAA football season wrap up on Monday. So, the NBA is sort of the middle of their season. They're always playing at the same time as the NHL anyway. So I do wonder, did the NHL want to wait until college football was over and the NFL was towards the end of their season and in the middle of the playoffs to start? And I think this actually helps them for viewers because once the NFL season is over, we got to a point with COVID where once the NBA came back, the NHL came back. Then you had NBA and NHL on almost basically every night. Then the NFL started while those two teams were still in the playoffs. So you had playoff games in the NHL and the NBA and NFL football and then college football on. We had a smorgasbord of sports going on in the fall into October. And even I think early November, the NBA was still going with the finals. You had so much going on that everybody's eyeballs were kind of spread everywhere. Now that the college football season is over, NFL is winding down. Now people are going to be looking for other things to watch now that football is going to be over, and maybe that's going to help hockey, as they start up the 2021 NHL season. I think the timing of this is very good for the NHL.
Yeah, no, and I think it was strategic, and I think it was strategic for viewers and the timing, like you said, of these other sports ending. But I think it was also strategic when you look at COVID and the impact of COVID in the two main countries of obviously the United States and Canada. I think the realigning of the divisions clearly shows that, where you have the North Division, which is just all Canadian teams. So those teams do not have to come and travel into the United States. So they'll just be playing each other. And then you have the new formed East, where you have really all the Eastern teams. Honestly, when I looked at it, I was like, why aren't the divisions aligned like this in the past? I mean, that's what I thought they should have been. And like I said, it's going to make an interesting season where you're going to, I know, take the NFL, you get to see a divisional opponent twice, right? So you get to see a lot, you learn a lot about them. Now in the NHL, you're going to get to see a divisional opponent 8 times in one season. So I think it's going to get chippy, and we know in the NHL and hockey, that's what we all love to see anyway, is slap shots and fighting and 5-minute major penalties. I know that's why I'm watching personally. But yeah, I think, this is going to be a great season for the NHL. You got some superstars that you can still look forward to carry the flame of the NHL. Alexander Ovechkin is really a great guy to watch always. And I'm looking to see how he meshes with the addition of Zdeno Chara, which, like I said, we talked about him on this show before, adding into that Washington Capitals team. And, as a fan, I'm just really looking to see what they can do together.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how those guys play together. Two big dudes, too, who can hit playing together in Washington. But, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, everybody's going to be dealing with COVID. All these pro sports leagues are going to be dealing with it. The NBA's got their issues right now. I think the NHL just started off with 24 players testing positive in training camp leading up to the start of the season. I believe it was 17 of those players were from the Dallas Stars. I might have my numbers mixed up. Maybe it was 27 or 14. Either way, more than half of them were from the Dallas Stars. So they obviously have an issue down there in Texas. Because everything's bigger in Texas, so why isn't COVID bigger in Texas, right? But they're going to have to deal with COVID, an outbreak like the NBA is right now. I think at some point too. So there are those challenges, but I think at this point now, we were all kind of like the NFL when they were dealing with COVID. We got frustrated with the situation in Denver with the quarterbacks. We got frustrated with games getting moved around, teams losing their bye weeks and so forth. But the NFL kind of just plowed through it, and I think that's just kind of what you have to do. I know they want to cater to the players as much as possible. Obviously, health and safety is number one, but these leagues are just going to try to get these games in because the biggest issue with the NBA and the NHL right now is that they want to get this season done so that they can then start on time for the 21-22 season, because that's when they believe, and they're pretty much assured that they're going to be able to have fans in the stadiums again, and they can start making real money again, because they're losing a lot of money without having fans in the stadiums now. They don't want to mess with next season. They want next season to start on time as usual with the draft, free agency, and so forth. So they're just trying to get these seasons in. And much like the NBA, I think the NHL is going to try to, just get through this season, even if they do have to deal with some COVID outbreaks throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, money talks, and money is the driving force, especially in professional sports. I think we sometimes tend to forget that as analysts or fans, that, sometimes it is about the bottom line, especially for these owners. But that's why a lot of these games have really still been pushed forward, even with the ongoing COVID thing. I look back at it and I would say, wow, I mean, how are they going to have professional sports? But then I was just looking at it and I'm like, yeah, they're going to have professional sports because of the money. I think the NFL has proven that, like I said, even team had no quarterbacks. They weren't willing to postpone the game. The NFL didn't postpone or cancel not a single game this season. I think, like you said, they're really looking to stay on track to keep themselves, so they're playing through their natural cycle of seasons. But I'm looking to see what the NHL can do, and especially with this realignment of the divisions. And I think it'll still be an exciting season once they can kind of get back into the swing of things, especially for play. It's such an exciting sport, a fast sport. So I'm really looking to see, what's going to happen in the NHL season.
Yeah, one final thing with the NHL too is, when the playoffs kick in, the play kind of kicks up, because throughout the regular season it's so much of a grind for the NHL, and then with the playoffs, the intensity heightens. You wonder if, because there's less games during the regular season this year in the NHL, if the intensity is going to be ratcheted up a little bit more this time around, kind of like it was in the postseason in their Canadian bubble that they had this past year during the beginning of the pandemic. Folks, that's it for our third edition of Comeback Sports. We had a lot of fun tonight. And Brandon, I just think your final thoughts on what was a crazy sports day today.
Well, my final thoughts, honestly, I want to go back to Deshaun Watson. If the Patriots let the Miami Dolphins go ahead and trade for Deshaun Watson, they're crazy. Here's what I do if I'm the Patriots GM. I take N'Keal Harry, I ship him and anybody else on the roster to the Texans, including 2 first-round picks. Send Deshaun Watson up here to New England. We need a new quarterback, but that's my last thought for the day, honestly.
Yeah, I love Watson too. I'd love for him to be on the Pats. I don't. How many picks is enough, I think, is the question. And yeah. I don't want Watson to come up here and the cupboard be dry with who he's going to be, or cupboard be bare with who he's going to be throwing to. And right now, the Patriots don't have guys that he's going to be throwing to, at least that we think right now are legitimate weapons for him. So I don't want him to come up to basically the same situation he has down in Houston, but I would love for him to play for the Patriots as well. But folks, we want to thank you again for joining us here on Comeback Sports. Make sure you check us out on YouTube. You can see our Twitter handles are at the very bottom of the screen there, as you can see them, both Brandon and I. So make sure if you want to tweet at us some questions, some comments about the show. You can also dip in into our live chat on YouTube. This will be posted on YouTube. We want to thank our director and producer, Ben Kudo, who's been doing a phenomenal job.
Great job.
Show off. He's been fantastic in dealing with the two of us as we try to fit topics in at the last minute before we come on the show. So, folks, thanks again for joining us here on Comeback Sports. We'll see you next time. Woo!